Hello, my name's Nick, and today I'm going to be reading a story from the Book of Dragons. And this story is called The Dragon of the North. Very long ago, there lived a terrible dragon who came out of the north and laid waste whole countries, devouring both men and beasts. And this monster was so destructive that people feared that unless help came, no living creature would be left on the face of the earth. This dragon had a body like an ox, legs like a frog, 2 short forelegs and 2 longer ones behind, and a tail like a serpent 60 feet long. When it moved, it jumped like a frog, and with every spring it covered half a mile of ground. It was accustomed to remain in one place for several years at a time, and not to move far until the whole neighborhood was eaten up. Nothing could hurt it, because its whole body was covered with scales which were harder than stone or metal. Its 2 eyes blazed with fire both day and night, and they had the power of bewitching anyone who looked at them, so that he would rush of his own accord into the dragon's huge jaws. Every time the dragon settled in a new place, the king of that country would offer his daughter in marriage, and rich rewards of golds and jewels to whoever would kill the dragon. Many tried to do so, but all of them perished in the attempt. And once, when a forest in which the dragon slept was set on fire all round him, he took no harm at all, but the country was short of timber for years to come. The time came when a young prince with his fortune to make fell in love with the princess of the country in which the dragon happened to be, and determined to win her. But he was a wise young man, who took the trouble first of all to consult the sages and magicians of that and all the neighbouring countries, until he found one who said, "No one can overcome the dragon by his own skill or bravery, and no magician in this part of the world has charms strong enough to prevail against it. But if you travel east, you may find King Solomon's ring, and if then you can read the secret writing engraved on it, then surely you will be able to conquer this or any dragon." So the prince set out, and after many adventures came to an enchanter in an eastern land who was able to help him. This he did by brewing a magic potion which gave the prince the power to understand all that the birds were saying. "The birds fly everywhere," said the enchanter, "and they, if any living creature does, will know where King Solomon's ring lies hidden. Go on your way and listen, ever listen to the talk of the birds. It may be that one day you will hear what you wish to know." At last the time arrived when the enchanter's words came true. The prince was lying half asleep one evening under a tree, when he heard 2 birds chattering to one another up in the branches over his head. "Look at that silly young man," said one bird. "He's trying to find King Solomon's ring. He'll never succeed." "He'd need to find a witch maiden first," said the other bird. "If she's not got the ring herself, she knows where it lies hidden." "True," answered the first bird, "but she never stays in one place for long. He might just as well try to catch the wind." "She'll be at the pool in the forest at full moon," said the other bird. "She comes there every month to wash her face in the magic water, so that it may never grow old and wrinkled." "I've never seen her," said the second bird. "Show me where the pool is, and we'll sit up in a tree and watch her." The prince pretended that he had not understood a word of what the birds had been talking about. But when they flew off, he followed them as if by chance, and sat down again under a tree by the pool to which they led him. "Here's that silly young man again," said one bird. "I expect the witch maiden will catch him." "He'll never have the sense to realize that he's perfectly safe from her if he doesn't let her have a single drop of his blood," said the other. Presently the witch maiden came, more beautiful than the moonlight, and bathed her face 9 times in the magic pool. Then she saw the prince, greeted him kindly, and took him with her to her palace, where she entertained him for many days, and at length tried to persuade him to become her husband, sealing the compact with 3 drops of his blood. But he put her off from day to day, and as she grew more and more anxious to win him, she gave away more and more of her secrets, until at last she took King Solomon's ring out of a golden casket and told him about it. "No mortal knows all the power of this ring, for none can read the secret words carved on it. But I have discovered as much as may be known. If I put it on the little finger of my left hand, then I can fly like a bird. If I put it on the 3rd finger of my left hand, I become invisible. If I put it on the middle finger of that hand, neither fire nor water nor any sharp weapon can hurt me. If I put it upon the forefinger, I can produce whatever I want in a moment. This palace and all the treasures in it were made in this way. Finally, if I wear it upon my thumb of my left hand, that hand becomes so strong that it can break down rocks and walls." "Do let me try," said the prince, "for I think it must be your magic that performs all these wonders, rather than any power dwelling in the ring." So the witch maiden let him wear the ring on the middle finger of his left hand, and sure enough, no knife would pierce him whether she stabbed him or he stabbed himself. "But what did you say would happen if I wore the ring on my thumb?" asked the prince. "Come down to the courtyard and I will show you," she answered. And when they were there, he put the ring on his thumb, and she bade him strike a great block of stone with that hand, and immediately as he did so, the stone flew into little pieces. While they stood laughing at the shattered stone, the prince slipped the ring onto his 3rd finger. "Now," said the witch maiden, "you are invisible until you take the ring off." But the prince had other ideas. Silently he sped to the furthest end of the courtyard. Then he took the ring off his 3rd finger, slipped it onto the little finger, and soared away into the air like a bird, leaving the witch maiden to lament her folly in ever trusting the ring out of her own hands. Away flew the prince to the enchanter who had taught him the language of the birds, and the enchanter was able to read the words of power engraved on the ring and instruct the prince how to wage his war against the dragon of the north. The prince presented himself before the king of the country which the dragon was at the time laying waste, and said, "Your Majesty, I've come to slay the dragon and win your daughter as my wife. I can do this if you will give me all that I need for my task, setting your smiths to work day and night as I may instruct them." "If I can slay the dragon," answered the king, "I will give you any powers that you like. Issue what commands you please, and when the dragon is dead, you shall marry the princess and rule in this land after me." So the prince set all the smiths to work, and they made an iron horse with little wheels under each of his feet, and they made a spear 6 feet long and a foot thick of solid iron, with a sharp spike at either end. 2 chains were fixed to rings in the middle of the spear, and at the other ends of the chains were fastened iron pegs so huge that it took 2 men to carry them. When all was ready, the prince put King Solomon's ring on his thumb and was able to pick up the spear, chains, pegs and all, with one hand as if it had been a wand of wood. With the other hand, he pushed the iron horse until he came in sight of the dragon. Then he mounted the horse and bade the king's soldiers push it. But to his dismay, he found that even 100 of them could not move it, and there seemed nothing to do but push it himself. Moreover, when the dragon saw him and the horse, it began to roar so fiercely that the soldiers showed signs of panic. While he was wondering how he could push the horse and ride on it at the same time, the prince heard a raven in a tree croaking advice.
Ride upon the horse and push the spear against the ground as if you were pushing off a boat from the land."
The prince did so, and found that in this way he could move forward quite easily. Roaring again, the dragon gave one of its great hops forward, covering most of the distance which separated him from his victim. The prince had only a few yards to go before the dragon could swallow both him and the horse, and its gigantic jaws, flashing with huge teeth, were already open to receive them. The prince trembled with horror, and his blood ran cold, but he did not lose his courage, and he knew that if he hesitated for a moment, he would himself be lost. As he reached the dragon, he raised the iron spear upright in his hand, and brought it down with all his might, straight through the monster's lower jaw. Then, quick as lightning, he sprang from his horse and dodged aside before the dragon had time to shut his mouth. Scarcely had he done so, when a fearful clap like thunder told him that the dragon's jaws had closed upon the spear. Turning, he saw the point sticking out through the dragon's upper jaw and knew that the other end was fastened firmly to the ground, while the dragon's teeth were clenched uselessly on the iron horse. Quickly, the prince drew a great iron mallet from his belt, and with it drove the huge pegs at each end of the chain deep into the ground, to make sure that the dragon could not pull out the spear or move from the spot to which he was pinned. The dragon's struggles lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and as he beat his tail on the ground, the earth trembled for 10 miles in every direction, as if there was an earthquake. As soon as the dragon could move no more, the prince picked up a stone which 20 men could not have lifted, and struck him so hard upon the head that a moment later he lay lifeless. Then the prince married the princess, and, after surviving an attempt made by the witch maiden to be revenged on him for the theft of King Solomon's ring, he became king of the country in which he had killed the dragon of the north, and lived happily ever after. The end.